Well, hello. Hello, everybody. Good to see you. Hi, Susan.
Hi.
Good to see you.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm so good. I'm so excited
Yeah, me too. Me too.
to have all the moms coming together here to talk about how to better connect with our tweens and teens. It's so important.
I know. I'm
Hel-
excited.
Yes, hello, Diane. We have Diane and Kelly and Tara and Valerie. Good to see you. And you can leave your cameras on, or you can leave them off, whatever you feel comfortable doing. And Susan and I just wanted to jump on here a little early, and I'm going to open up my chat. And if you want to comment in the chat, hello, Diane, say where you're from, what the ages of your kids are. That's always helpful to know. And what are you bringing here today? How are you feeling? We always love to know that, where everybody is at. And make sure when you answer in the chat, you make it to everyone because then we can all see. Unless you want to send me something privately, that's okay too. Hi, Donna. I have been talking to quite a few moms about Mother's Day on Sunday and and just how that affects us. How do you feel about Mother's Day, Susan?
I'm excited about Mother's Day. I asked for no gifts, but what I asked for is just hanging out all day and no cooking or cleaning that I have to do.
I love that. No cooking and no cleaning. We have a really good excuse to not do it on that day of all days.
Oh, yes. What about you?
Yes. Well, it's funny. I really didn't. I usually try to set myself up well with Mother's Day or my birthday and really ask for what I want. But I've been kind of busy and I thought, wow, I haven't even, asked for what I want yet. And what do I want? I got to figure out what I want to do. So I like that idea of not cooking, not cleaning. I did think though it might be fun to have my family cook together. So we'll just see. I have to still think about it. But I find that sometimes Mother's Day can be um, discouraging for some moms or moms that have lost their moms. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so it can sometimes bring up a lot. Hi, Valerie from Montreal, two boys, 15 and 12. So that's good to know. And Kaylee's now with us in April. So, what we're doing before we get started is where are you from? What are the ages of your kids? You can share where you're from or not. And then what are you struggling with? Like what made you decide to come today? And Diane's in Belize, grandparenting my 14-year-old grandson. I was inspired by the participants in the last webinar and was able to attend too long ago in late 2024 and took some action. Well, we're so glad that you're here. So glad you're here. Yeah, the participants. I mean, isn't that the truth? Just being here with all of you moms when we can come together around our struggles and our challenges with our kids and share that, it's so encouraging. So I want to affirm all of you that are here. Donna, I'm Donna, and my daughter is 13 years old and is neurodiverse with Asperger's autism. Thank you for sharing that, Donna. This is all really helpful to know as Susan launches in and talks about these things. And that certainly comes with its own set of challenges, doesn't it? Unique set of challenges. Yeah, Rima. Hi, I'm Rima. I have a 12-year-old son with ADHD. Thank you, Rima. I know what that's like. I have two, now they're adults, but two kids with ADHD. And that too comes with its unique set of challenges. Well, we're almost at time. Anybody else? Kelly. Hi, Kelly. She's in our membership. I'm so glad to see you, Flagstaff. I have a 14-year-old daughter and in a very challenging season of life as we navigate the transition from middle school to high school. Diane, I'm trying to figure out what is just my grandson's 14-year-old boy brain and what is his depression and executive functioning deficit.
It's a great question. Yes.
It totally is. I would
Yeah.
be like, okay, is this my daughter's ADHD or, is this, so to speak, normal?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just the teen brain. And that was so hard to discern those things. So you're not alone in that, Diane. Stacy, hi. I have a 17-year-old son and 13-year-old daughter and a 65-year-old husband, all with ADHD. Oh, wow. Yeah.
That is a
That's
lot. Yes.
that's trying to stay sane, right? Trying to stay grounded. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
I'll
My
have to
my ADHD brain hurts.
I'll have to tell the story of my husband later and who also has ADHD. He's a physician. He doesn't really say that he does, but he does. Oh my goodness.
Oh, the unique challenges. Oh my gosh. Kaylee, happy Wednesday. I'm in Reno, Nevada. I have four kids aged 26, 18, 16, and 14. All of my kids have anxiety. My daughter has ADHD, and my 18-year-old has major depressive disorder and borderline agoraphobia. Thank you, Kaylee. Thank you. Yeah, and I know Kaylee, she's in our membership too. And I just want to affirm all of you. We'll start now for showing up and making this time for yourself and investing in yourself. I know you're busy. I know this is May. I know May is like crazy town, and that you've just set aside a little, slice of your day to feed what you need and learn how to better connect and support your tweens and teens. I just want to really affirm you for that. And I just want to tell you a little bit. I'm going to introduce Susan, and I just want to explain to you a little bit about where we're going to go. So, I'm going to introduce Susan, and we've been reading in the membership, and some of you are in the membership, some of you aren't, but we do a book club. And so Susan's publicist reached out to me and sent me her book. And I was like, this is so good. We have to read it in the book club. And it's all the things that I feel are foundational to our relationship with our tweens and teens and how to not only parent them and show up for them, but also ourselves. And so we chose it for the book club. But then I said to Susan, I'm like, well, this is too good. I have to share it with our larger community. So that's what we're doing here. And I don't know if you know Susan, but she is a therapist. She's a speaker. She has over 20 years in clinical practice. And what I love about Susan, besides her book and starting to really get to know her as a person, is that she works with parents that have tweens, that have teens, that have college age kids. And she has this unique perspective and a mom of, you have three kids, right, Susan? Three? Three.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So she brings like all these great insights that she shares in our book too, and these stories of how tweens and teens are feeling with their parents, but also what's going on as a parent. And she like merges those two, and she really helps us to build those lifelong, healthy, strong relationships that really all of us want with our kids. And she also, I just have to add this on a side note, she's also a consultant and community leader in the area of suicide prevention. So it's mental health awareness. And I thought, perfect time to be able to do this. At the end, I also want you to know I have some questions that some of you already gave me, but also as we go through this and Susan's sharing, please share your questions in the chat. And then at the end, Susan will answer them. So we might go an hour. We'll just see, but make sure if you have any questions, you state at the end so Susan can answer them. So enough about me sharing. So Susan, why don't you, and first of all, just thank you so much for being here with all of us. It's a gift. Are you there?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me? No?
Yeah, now I can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a gift. And I just want you to share like how you decided to write this book and like give us those that are here that have not read it yet, give them a little overview.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. First of all, thank you, Cheryl. Oh my gosh, this is so wonderful. It's so lovely. You've done so much work on making this happen today. So thank you so much. And thank you all moms that are here today. It is the most amazing position to be in as a mom, but also it's very difficult and challenging. And I know that. I know that personally. I have 3 kids, 26, 22, and 12. She just turned 12, so she's in 6th grade. So I do have this view of seeing what it's been like for kids and being a teen and being a mom over 2 decades, both at home, but also in my practice. That was one of the reasons why I thought, gosh, I should write a book. But the intention of the book is to create stronger families where there's a deep sense of belonging, healthy communication, and an emotional closeness between parent and teen, because that's what really safeguards kids in today's world. And research tells us that. I use that word connectedness in the book, and that's that feeling of internal warmth where there's a responsiveness in the relationship that feels safe and reassuring. You feel that you matter. There's a deep sense of belonging. And really, it's that feeling of somebody has your back no matter what. And so kids really need that feeling. We all need that feeling. We all need connectedness. Being a therapist for over 20 years, I see a lot of the same negative cycles, the same patterns of interaction that create disconnection and conflict. And I wanted to take the tools that I know that work in session, but also in my own home that create stronger bonds. And I put it in a book so I could reach more people. There's so many barriers to access help, whether that's financial. A lot of people won't go to therapy because of stigma. There, not services available in certain areas. And so this book really eliminates those barriers. So that's really why I wrote the book.
Yeah, well, and it absolutely does that. I found that as I was going through it, I mean, you talk about a lot about self-reflection, even on how we grew up in our families and exercises that you can do that'll really help you, which we often don't think about. How we were parented is impacting how we're parenting our kids. And so you really cover, it's like going to therapy for mom too, so that you can start getting curious about how we're showing up. And you talk a lot about triggers, and paying attention to how we're feeling. So we'll dive into that. But you do talk a lot about the sense of creating belonging, which as I was reading through the book, I had never thought about it until I was in therapy with, now my oldest is 34, but when I first took her to therapy when she was in middle school, I remember being asked that question about does your daughter, like, where does she fit in your family? And does she feel like she belongs in the family? And that kind of felt like somebody had, like, hit me over the head. Never had thought about that. But sadly, at the time, the answer was no. I didn't feel like she felt this sense of belonging. And so it's been a journey for me learning all of these things. But what do you mean when you say a sense of belonging, and how can we do that? How can we create this sense of belonging? Like some tangible things that moms can do.
Yeah. So we talk a lot about belonging in community, at school, and even in the workplace, but we are really not talking about creating a sense of belonging at home. And again, that belonging is I matter. You see me, you hear me, I matter, I fit in here. And that feeling of like, not only do you love me, but that you like me. And that is really important for kids to know that their parents like them. I do that exercise all the time with kids of what do you think your parents think of you and how they feel about you? And it is sometimes pretty shocking for parents to think that there's been such a disconnect there, that they really don't know how they feel about their kiddo. And so their kid doesn't know how they feel about them. Sorry. And so, we really need to be sharing how we feel with our kids, not only the things that we love about them, but what that we like about them to create that sense of belonging. There's these times during the day, greetings, I call them, when you say goodbye to your kid or hello or good night. These are all these times that can be small bits of connection. Instead of when your kid walks in the door and saying, do you have homework, or what are you doing now? It's like, hi, I missed you today. It's so nice to see you, right?
Mhm.
Um, Rituals, traditions, these are all kind of grounding the family in belonging. Um, and then, it's really important to look at what some of the barriers are to belonging. And a lot of that is, some teasing or snide comments or criticalness or judgment. All of those things tell the other person that there's something about you that doesn't belong here. And so I
Mhm.
think we don't really realize that when we are being critical or judgmental, that's really what the other person is receiving, is like, oh, there's something wrong with me. You don't accept me the way that I am. And so that piece of acceptance is really important for your kids to know, that you unconditionally accept them. It's very, very important. Um,
Yeah.
and then, the big one that I know that we hear a lot that happens at home, and it's really hard, and I'm not saying I never do it, but yelling. Yelling is a really tough one of how can we all stay regulated at home when we're frustrated or annoyed, or when our teen is really not doing what we want them to be doing or what they need to be doing, and how can we handle those situations so we're not yelling. It not only takes away that sense of belonging, but it also can make the environment feel a little chaotic. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's another piece that it's called the mom dad role and the parent role. And we can talk about that today as well. And that also helps with belonging.
Yeah, I'm excited to jump into that. But so often, and I'm just going to say it, everybody, because I know what moms are thinking, it's like, well, gosh, sometimes I don't like my kid. We don't want to admit that, but maybe there's really tough stuff going on, and it's so difficult to, like, if they're being disrespectful or they're not doing what they need to be doing, they're not helping out, they're not motivated, they're acting out. How do you bridge that gap? And you feel like, gosh, if I'm really honest here, I'm not liking my kids. So how do I kind of jump over that hurdle?
Mhm.
And and what would you say to that mom that's feeling that way right now?
Yeah. First of all, it's a great question, a really great question, because we don't always like our kids. But I think what we need to really look at is two things there. Is it that we don't like the developmental stage that they're in? Okay, that's a big one, right? And I think the other thing is, do we not like their behavior? Not the kid, but their behavior. And we need to separate that out a little bit. And the developmental stage also goes along with the behavior, right? Because
Mhm.
kids act, depending on where they are in their development, they act certain ways. But the other thing I want to share here is I am very big on respect at home and both ways. And so in my house, if my child is talking to me rudely, I'm going to call them on it immediately. And I'm not saying that she can do that with me, but there is this piece of we have kindness at home. And so if she were to say something rudely, I would look at her and say, could you try that again? Or can you rephrase that? And I've done that all the years. And I promise you, like, you can feel it creep up again during those preteen, teen years. And if you've done the work early enough, then they have already gotten into the rhythm of like, oh yeah, I was rude. That's on me. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that.
So can I rephrase that? What was the other thing you said?
Um, can you try that again?
Can you try that again? Do you ever do that with yourself?
No, but what I will do is if they look at me and they give me a look and I'll go, oh yeah, I could have said that better, couldn't I have? Like, or I'll say that, and then I'll add to it and say, I'm just really frustrated right now. I'm sorry. And it has
Yeah.
nothing to do with you. I mean, I think that's the other big piece is, we're frustrated about lots of things. Moms, oh my gosh, we have so much on our plate. And I don't know about you guys, but when I have to do many different tasks, that's when I kind of break down a little bit. When I'm working and then I have to do grocery shopping and then I have to do kids stuff and scheduling doctors, it's like the more different types of tasks I do, the more I get taxed. I'm taxed and I'm just kind of like spent. And
Mhm.
so that's when I notice I get a little more edgy, as if you could say. And so I can say to my kid, yeah, I could have said that better. And you know what? I'm overwhelmed and I'm really sorry. It's not you. Because kids are really egocentric. They think, and this is just where they are developmentally, they think everything revolves around them. And
Mhm.
when mom or dad are in a bad mood, they go in their head and they assume it's them first. And so
Yeah.
there's so many times that there's misunderstandings where the kid thinks that the parent's mad at them and they're not. And that can be this kind of perpetual, I'm always in trouble feeling that a kid could have.
That is such good information
Mm-hmm.
to understand that. And I think I have read that even the neuroscience now says that kids, adolescents read facial expressions negatively, that that's how they take it in. So that they're thinking they're in trouble. It's them.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I tell a story in the parenting connection about my own experience with my son when he was 10. And I'm standing at the kitchen counter and I'm going through my list and I'm like, oh God, I was just so overwhelmed. And he comes up to me and he goes, Mom. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, are you mad at me? And I said, what? He goes, well, you have this look on your face and I'm just assuming you're mad at me and wondering what I did. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, I'm not mad at you at all. I'm so sorry. I said, I'm overwhelmed right now and I'm making a checklist in my head. And I guess I look mad when I'm overwhelmed. And he just starts laughing. And I said, a hug would be great right now. And so he gave me a hug. And so now from then on, he knows that that look means I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And so he'll come over and goes, "What's going on, Mom? You got that look on," and he'll give me a hug.
I love that. It's so great that he said something.
Right.
He
Right.
checked he checked it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm thinking how we as moms can also do that, where our kids are acting really moody and we think it's us, where something's going on that we don't even know, but we're taking it personally.
Right. And that's why building that close connection and the open dialogue is really important. Instead of him being afraid to ask me, we've built safety and open communication where he can just ask me, "What's wrong?"
I love that.
Yeah.
So just for the moms that are putting things in the chat, no, I'll get back to you, okay, with your questions, because we'll get to that. So can you just quickly, I just want to steer just over a notch, and then we'll get back to it. But I think it's important to understand and to remember. I think we have to remind ourselves over and over again, what's normal behavior because you were talking about where they are developmentally. So, where are they developmentally? Like, what do you see as just normal thing?
Well, with that in mind, I do want to say kids are under a tremendous amount of stress. And so if I look at what my daughter was doing at 12 versus what my sixth grader is doing now, or if I look at 15-year-olds in my practice and what my own daughter was doing at 15, it's drastically different. And so one of the most important things developmentally to realize is we're asking more of our kids, but their brain development hasn't changed. Okay. And so where they are is the frontal lobe, the problem solving, the impulse control, all of those things are still under construction. And so when we keep piling more stress on them, they actually don't know how to handle it. And so, what may not feel stressful to an adult, that same situation can be very stressful to a teenager. And
Mm.
so, the amount of academic work that they have, the extracurricular activities. My daughter was on a competitive soccer team and she practiced 3 times a week for an hour and a half. Now it's 4, 5, 6 times a week, 2.5 hours plus conditioning. I mean, we're almost doubling in a decade what we're asking of our teenagers just in the extracurricular activities. And really, like, aren't these supposed to be fun? Like, where is the fun? Where is the just being a young person?
And that's just the extracurricular. That doesn't even include all the pressure they feel around school and social and where they are emotionally and all of
Oh,
that.
yeah. I mean, they're dealing with, think about the physical changes that they're going through.
Ah,
Look at an 11-year-old girl, and by the time, from fifth grade to eighth grade, look what happens to them physically. Like they're like developmentally so much. Their emotional world is so different and so much more difficult. To navigate with the phones and social media, which, we can talk about that today. I do not recommend social media. My 12-year-old does not have a phone, and she is one of two people in her friend group. And we talk about it probably about weekly, but I can't do that to her. I tell her, I just can't do it to you. She already has, it's already stressful just using the watch and the texting. The
oh, yeah.
language that these kids use is actually shocking. How they talk to each other, the words they use, how they talk about sex. And, my daughter, comes home with these big eyes, like, what's happening? How do I respond to this? So it's a lot to navigate, along with being in school for 7 hours a day, taking classes that they may not actually be good at or have no interest in, just the noise and the could be a great day in their friend group, but maybe it's not. And so they really are dealing with a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think that's important for us to remember. So thank you, for sharing all of that, to understand where they're at, and that you have created a sense of that connectedness where she even felt like she could come to you and say, how do I respond to this?
Right, right. That's what's important. That is what is important, because we need to have that exchange. One, obviously to help her feel like emotionally supported, right? And how do I deal this? I'm not taking it over. I'm not saying I'm going to fix it. We have to work through these things together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. Well, explain to them. We'll keep talking about the creating connection and how we can do that sense of connectedness. But I want them to share, I want you to share with them, because this was an aha for me, the mom dad role and the difference. This is
Yeah.
very helpful. So, yeah.
It is one of the things in the book that most people are like, oh my gosh, like that's a game changer. Or when I give talks, they're like, you just gave me something I can walk away with right now and implement tomorrow. And so, you know, I ask teens the same question. What percent of interaction do you perceive as positive with your parent? And I've been doing this for years. And I ask them for each parent, and most say around 30%. And so when I ask them what makes up that 30% positive that they perceive in between, that in that relationship with their parent, they say things like, we went for a walk, we went skiing, we cooked together, we cuddled on the couch and watched a movie. My mom, dad just listened to me, but what is happening in those times is the parents cultivating the relationship with their child. They're experiencing joy with their child. And so I term that the mom dad role. And so then I ask them, well, what makes up the other 70% that you perceive as negative? And they talk about all the interactions that begin with, have you, when are you going to, and you need to. And these are the interactions that I term as the parent role. And that's, the things that we do have to do, right? We do have to keep our kids on track, make sure they do their homework, their chores. These are all really important tasks in raising our kids. But if we are stuck in the parent role the majority of the time, we're not cultivating the relationship, we're not cultivating connection, and our kids are likely not going to come to us when they actually need something. It can actually feel more like a performance review,
Mm.
a relationship. Yeah. And so, when I ask that question to teenagers, it helps me jump into their emotional experience so quickly of like, what's it like in my relationship with my parents?
Mm. Super helpful. So what do we do? Because if you're like, oh, 'cause, it's so easy to do. I mean, they're so busy. They have so much on their plate. You feel like, okay, I finally have a window here. They finally came out of the room and there's all this stuff they need to do. And so I have to seize the moment and I got to ask them, have you done whatever? Or have you done
Yeah.
your chores? Or when are you going to, right?
Right.
So how do we balance,
Yeah. Yeah.
share what you talk about in the book of how we can get that percentage up?
Yeah. First of all, I think it's great just to say to your kids, I want to have a closer relationship with you. I don't want to be doing this parent stuff. I want to have fun. I want us to have a great connection. I want to have more fun and joy with you. And this is my intention, okay, with you. And I want to put some things in place so we can be in that mom, dad role more. And so it's okay, we're going to meet about homework on Tuesdays and Sundays, or maybe it's once a week, which also, by the way, I have kids asking me, I work that with their parent, that the parent is too involved and that the parent needs to give the reins over to the kids the online portal has been disastrous, I think.
Totally.
And I've had kids like, just let me do it. Just let me try. Right. And I think we as parents don't want our kids to fail. We don't want them to suffer. They won't get into the college they don't want to. But the fact is they've got to have trial and error. That's how they learn. They have to have responsibility, and then they have to fail and figure it out. They really.
Mm-hmm.
So putting some safeguards in place. We're going to meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays about your homework. You can tell me how you're doing, what support you need. The room. What days are the room need to be cleaned? So I don't have to keep repeating myself. Did you clean your room? You need to clean your room. Or you walk into the room and you sigh and you make faces and you kick the clothes and, all that stuff that we do. I've done it. I know. And like, okay, on Sundays, by the end of the day, the room has to be cleaned, right? So putting some things in place so you don't have to keep repeating yourself and that the interaction is only about the parent stuff.
Yeah, bringing that up. I have a few questions here. How to balance, especially when they're not doing their thing. But what if they are not trying? Now that could get into, I just did a whole workshop on motivation, but briefly because those are where those voices come into our head, but they're not trying or they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So
Mhm.
what would you say to that?
Well, I mean, again, I think, having that conversation in the beginning of I want to have, better interactions with you. I want to have a stronger relationship with you. And I feel like this is all we're doing. And I don't want to do it. I don't want to keep repeating myself. And so making them come up with a plan. Usually when kids come up with the plan, they're more likely to follow the plan. So that's one thing. The other thing is, are there underlying issues that exist?
Mm,
Is the kid, is there some depression? And is there ADHD? Now, the ADHD piece is a big factor, and I know more kids now have been diagnosed with ADHD, but that doesn't mean they can't do things or follow through. It actually means they need more help and more practice in following through, right? And so what are those things that they need to do to help themselves stay on track and keep focused? And I know there's a lot of ADHD coaching out there, both for parents and for kids, to do that. But they need to get into the rhythm themselves of doing those things
mm.
and trying to keep down on the, okay, you made a mistake, and how can we correct that now? Instead of the yelling and that kind of thing. Because when the environment isn't calm or a parent is dysregulated, it actually it's not going to make the kid perform better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You can't make them. That's the hard thing, I think, too. It's not going to work.
Mhm.
That's why that connection is so important. I like how you're saying, Susan, how to help them, have that conversation of what you don't want. Like, I don't want to be nagging. I don't want to be
Yeah.
getting into these arguments and these power struggles with you. I want to have more fun with you. I want it to be positive. And here's what's happening, and what do you think is going to work? So that
Mhm.
they can take more ownership because they're really good at coming up with what they think would work for them. And a lot of the time, what we're trying to get them to do, our way isn't working. So,
Right. How can I support you so we can have a better existence? It can be more harmony at home and that you can be successful. And, maybe they need additional support. Maybe they need some therapy. If there's depressive symptoms and there's really that lack of motivation, then maybe they need more help.
yeah, more support.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then also just looking at other things that they're doing. Okay. Obviously, we know that motivation and depression and anxiety, exercise is a must. It's a must when we have these types of diagnosis. It's a must I think for everyone. I think everyone should be moving their body. I think everyone should be off the screens. A really limited screen should not be in the bedroom. They need to be plugged in at night. All of these things are boundaries. And if you could think of it like every little piece helps a certain percentage to get to that place of where your kid is actually functioning better and is more motivated.
Mm-hmm. And I think that speaks to why we need support in order to just, sometimes it's just us needing a lot of support to figure out how do we begin to do that. Because
Yeah.
I know some moms are here like, where do I even start with that?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Okay. I want to backpedal just a tad because I felt like I jumped over it because this is another part of your book that I found fascinating. Tell them in communication, I still think, I'm like, I cannot believe this. What percentage of communication is verbal? Then there's paraverbal, and then
Uh-huh.
I get the third one. Tell them that because that's so interesting.
Yeah. So, and again, these percentages are not like rock solid, but these are averages. And I can share the graphic, although I'd have to find it, but in the book, there's a graphic and it shows about communication. And it is kind of surprising, but verbal communication is really about 7%. And
Mhm.
the other two big pockets of communication and how we're sending messages to our kids is what we obviously nonverbals, right? That's our facial expression, our body posture, all of those things. But there's also the paraverbals, which is tone, pitch, volume, and the rhythm of our voice. And so we have to look at the nonverbals and the paraverbals when we're communicating, because that is really a big place that we get off track with our kids. They are so in tune with what's going on in our face, how we're saying something, and so mom's side. She's annoyed with me. She doesn't want to help me with my homework. Communications off track, you're disconnected immediately. And so this is where, like, when I'm doing work and with parents and teens and in the family unit, and I'm talking about the cycle of interaction that happens between them, the nonverbals and the paraverbals is included in that cycle of how people are interacting with each other. You do this, then I do that, and then you do this, and then I do that, and we're disconnected. And a lot of the time it's a sigh or a roll of the eye or what have you. And then we go up in our heads, we tell ourselves something, and then that impacts how we feel and impacts our behavior.
Yeah. Isn't
Yeah.
that good, guys, to think about that? How much that plays a part in our communication. So you talk about effective communication and how we automatically assume or how we go into those cognitive distortions where we're telling ourselves things that a lot of times aren't true, but they
Yeah.
feed a lot of our communication. And how do we check it out? Can you
Yeah.
share a little bit of that with them?
Yeah. So when we're communicating, we're communicating with somebody else, we're talking, and there's, a verbal exchange, and then of course all the other nonverbals and paraverbals. We're sending messages back and forth. But what's also happening is there's a second conversation that's going on in our head. And I term it the second conversation in the book. And it's really makes up what we think the other person thinks about us and what we think how the other person feels about us. And then it's also a view of self, how we view ourselves. And so when I am working with parents, teens, or even couples, and we're doing this back and forth, the parent will say something. I'll ask the teenager, what did you hear your mom, dad say? And they will share part of what they said and part of what I term that second conversations in their head. And so I have to go back and forth between parent and teen often to clear up what was actually said. And we're moving slow in here, and I'm in here, working it back and forth. And so even in slow interactions, this happens. And so oftentimes I feel more like an interpreter in sessions, right? That's not what your mom said. So tell me what's going on right now. Tell me what you're thinking about how you think and she feels about you. Well, she just thinks I'm rebellious. She just thinks I'm a problem. Okay. Did she actually say that? No.
Mm,
And then we go through that piece of, again, okay, this is how you are interpreting your parent feels about you. That must be painful.
mm,
And then the parent has to clear it up. I don't feel that way about you. And I'm so sorry that you think that way, that you think that I feel that way about you. It's really powerful work, to be honest. It's so powerful to clear up those misunderstandings of the second conversation that's running in the head. I do want to
wow.
tell you another one, though. And it's a story about a girl, a woman, a mom named Christine. And she is so hard on herself. Every time she's interacting with her teenager and they get in a conflict, she goes up in her head and she says, I suck at this. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a bad parent.
Mm. Who relates to that?
Yeah. And so that impacts the interaction. And so that took a while for me with that particular client to say, you're not a bad parent at all. None of us are perfect parents. I'm not a perfect parent. The fact is, you're thinking about your parenting, so you're being a good parent. Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's painful to hear, that negative self-talk that moms have, that teenagers have. And it's all of this stuff that goes unsaid and creates all these assumptions and misunderstandings.
Yeah, I see that a lot working with moms, and I've experienced that myself, that whole this is my fault. Oh, if I only had, back when they were 3, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah,
We blame ourselves so much
we do. As
for, for what happens with our kids and feeling like it's all our fault. And then how I see that play out is then we feel like we have to do more because somehow this must be my fault. So I better do more to make sure that I'm being a good mom. So how would you reframe that belief?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
are we relating to having that belief? So then I better make sure that they're doing better in school. Because if they're not doing better at school, then it's going to be my fault that I didn't support them well enough.
yeah.
So what would you
I
say to
think, I mean, we only know what we know, right? Which is our experience. And so looking back at our own family of origin, we only know what we know, which is our experience. And so that is like a basis of how we're moving forward, right? Unless we're self-reflecting and working on it, right? You know, hindsight's 2020. We are in the moment, we're doing the best we can with the information that we have, and we have to be okay with that, right?
them?
We do want to be present with our kids and, attuned with them and all of those things. But beating ourselves up about something that we didn't do that we finally just maybe discovered is not going to help the current situation. It's not going to help you in your current parenting, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be, okay, I see it differently now, and I'm going to move forward now differently.
Yes, I love that. And I will say, having older kids, and you do too, I can look back and I can now see in hindsight when I was parenting out of that place, it wasted a lot of precious time. Like you said, it was more, I was in the parent role out of guilt and fear versus that mom dad role of like, let's create more connection. Let's focus on creating more fun in our family. How can we do that? I wasted, I mean, and that's of course me, but I look back and I just want to say that to all the moms. So many things work themselves out.
Yeah.
And just having that more of that compassion towards ourselves that we're not perfect. And I want to share what Kaylee said. This is so good. I may never get mom of the year, but I'm here, present, and I'm doing the best I can with what I have right now. And I love,
That's great, Haley. Thank you
yeah,
for sharing that. Thank you.
yes. Yeah. And Diane says we need to give ourselves grace,
Oh,
100%.
we do. I mean, gosh, our job is so big and we need to give ourselves grace.
Absolutely. So you talk about the volley.
Hmm.
I think this is hard for us to do. So I want you to talk about what is the volley when it comes to communication, and why is the volley important when it comes to parent-teen interactions?
Okay. So, you know, that volley, if we really want to look back at our kids when they were infants, and we're told you got to create a secure bond with your child, with your baby, right? And so the only way they really communicated with us then was through crying, right? And so parents attune, the baby's crying, they're asking, they need something, right? And so the parent, they're serving up a need, the parent responds, feeding, changing a diaper, rocking, cuddling. That was a return, and that serve return is called a volley. And so now during the preteen, teen years, cultivating that attachment, that bond, it just looks different. It's less physical work and labor intensive and more of an emotional connection.
Hmm.
And so that emotional connection is largely through listening, listening to understand our kid. When we go to an interaction and we wait and we listen with that intent to understand what's happening, things go much different, I promise. And then,
And
um,
okay,
go ahead. Did you have a question?
I thought it would be cool to do a role play and I could be the teenager.
Sure.
I'm like, get in the car after school, and I'm like, I hate my math teacher. He sucks. And I'm just not doing, I'm I'm done. I'm not doing my math anymore.
Wow, it sounds like you had a hard day.
Yes, it was a very hard day.
Do you want to talk about it some more? I'm here to just listen.
Yeah, like he embarrassed me in front of the whole class today. And then when I didn't know the answer to the question, he just sat there and laughed. It was so embarrassing, and the whole class laughed.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I mean, it is hard to be embarrassed. It's really hard to be embarrassed. I'm so sorry.
See, do you all see that the difference? What do we want to do first? We get scared, right? We want to jump in. You want to fix it. You want to say, well, of course he was mad at you. You didn't study, right? And that's what we think to ourselves. But just the way, like I felt heard by you saying that.
Hmm. Yeah. And, the other thing is like, I'm calling the teacher,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
calling the principal. And then the kid escalates. No, no, no. Like that
yeah.
always happens too, right? It's if you stay calm, you're just listening. Your kid's going to do this every day, every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you just stay calm. And then after they get it out, they kind of move on, to be honest. Most of the time, they just move on. I used to call it when my oldest would get in the car, and it started around fifth grade because there was a girl that was, oh my gosh, she was such a bully. And every day it was something. I'd hear the kid's name when she got in the car. And so we just said, okay, when you get in the car, dump it. Just dump it. And she would dump it. and I'd listen and I'd empathize and I'd validate her feelings. And then we would move on.
And then it's just kind of like you've gotten it out and then
Exactly.
they're better. It's like they're not looking for advice. And you talk about that in the book too. Like they're not asking, but we often give them that unsolicited advice.
Right. Jump into their emotional experience rather than jumping to problem solving. It will
Yeah.
get you so far. That very simple thing. And I do want to just add, when they are venting and dumping and all of that, they're going to have lots of emotions going on and they may feel angry or sad. And again, you staying regulated and being compassionate. But I always want to say the boundary is you can't be mad at me. You can't be yelling at me or, you know what I mean? It still can be this respectful place of I'm listening to you and I understand how you're feeling and I'm empathizing and validating how you're feeling right now. Because sometimes I think teens, what I call throw the emotional mud at the parent. So we
Yeah.
don't want that, right? But
Mhm.
you can be mad. You just can't take it out on me. Yeah,
Yeah. There's that boundary line.
right.
So Diane says my grandson mumbles. I have
Yep.
some, I have some mumblers in my house.
I
And
know, me too.
when I tell him I can't hear what he is saying, he says I am scolding him. How do I handle this? That's
So,
exactly what you were saying. That's how he's hearing it.
yes. Yeah. My son mumbles too. And there's a joke now that, he's just very sensitive. And
Mm,
so when I would say something in a stern voice, like, get your shoes, I'm not yelling, right? But I would use a stern voice. He would say I was yelling. And so we actually added a little humor to it because he realized I actually wasn't yelling, even though it really did feel like I was yelling to him. So we had to work through it, but we did use humor in that and it kind of lightened it. So every time I would say he'd hear that tone, it's really just a firm tone. We got to go, grab your shoes, not the sweet tone, but just the more firm. He would laugh and he'd burst out laughing, going, "Stop yelling at me, mom." And then we'd laugh and then we'd move on.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
thinking even making, that you're not scolding him, but you're getting hard of hearing. That's how
Right. But I mean,
I feel.
in that question, I think it is, what can we do to make this interaction better? Because
Yeah.
I'm not hearing you. I don't want to annoy you by saying what, but I can't hear you. So again, dump it in his lap. What do you think we should do?
Yeah. I like that. Very helpful. So you also encourage parents, this is really good, to drop the word rebellion from their vocabulary when it comes to adolescence. And why is this such an important shift to switch from, that word rebellion and how we're viewing our tweens and teens?
Yeah. We use that word a lot. It's a dump all for kids' behavior. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's accurate. It has such a negative connotation. To tell you some of the things that happen in here where a kid is actually expressing themselves and the parent will say, "Oh, you're just being rebellious." And the kid looks at them like, "No, I'm just talking about how I'm feeling, right? I'm frustrated, I'm unhappy, whatever it is." So I think that one, it has a negative connotation. I think when we look at our kids and say the teen years are horrible, they're just rebellious, we're off to a bad start. And it's a lens that we are filtering all their behavior through, and it's a faulty lens and it will affect our interactions because we are approaching the interaction with that mindset of they're just rebellious. It's almost like the terrible twos. Why are we saying 2-year-olds are terrible? They're not terrible. They're not terrible at all. That's where they are in their developmental stage. They're picking up things, they're looking, they're testing their world. Teenagers are in a developmental stage where they're individuating,
Mhm.
not rebelling. They are figuring out who they are, what they like, what they don't like. They're trying to find their people, they're exploring, and they are experimenting, and they do risk take. And that is all developmentally appropriate, actually, like to be risk taking. We do want to keep them safe. We have to give them the right risk to take, right? But it's not all rebellion. And when we do that, it impacts the conversation, but it also impacts, like, we might miss something. Maybe they're down. Maybe they are struggling in school. Maybe they have a learning disability. That's a big one. Oh, she just be rebellious. She got a D.
Mhm.
I don't think so. Let's talk to her. Let's try to
Mhm.
understand. She didn't understand the material. Math is getting harder. I don't know how to do it.
Yeah. If it was like me, I hated math and it's so hard. I procrastinated because it felt so difficult to do.
Mhm.
It didn't mean that I didn't want to do well. I just didn't have the tools and the skills to do well.
Right. I was horrible at math. Really, really bad. Yeah, I get it. It's hard to sit in a class where you don't know what's going on
Yeah.
for an hour. And
Yeah.
sometimes they have 90-minute classes. It really feels bad. Like everyone else knows what's happening and I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's easy to view rebellion also when they're like your values at this age they tend to disagree with, or you'll say some things like black and they say it's white and they think they have all the answers, and we just see it as they're rebelling, they're being difficult, they're disagreeing with me and just causing a fight is how it can feel. And so what would you say to that?
So, I mean, I think some of it is, again, like that individuating, and then I just lost the word that I wanted to say, differentiating. Differentiating is that piece of, looking at the values and separating themselves from their parents and what's happening there, right? And
Mhm.
so I think this is really a case by case as far as like with parents. I don't want to tell them what to do about their own like belief system or religion or something like that, right? But kids will come to you and sometimes they're just testing you, right? I think, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes they're just testing you. Sometimes they're just trying to get your goal, right? Like, oh, this is going to get her. I'm going to tell her I don't believe in God, right? And then, and I've seen it. I've
Oh,
seen
I had my kids do that. I think all three of them did it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So I think it to have conversations with them and stay calm,
yeah.
not escalate, and have that back and forth. We can have a difference of opinion, but we can still talk and work it out. But, oh, by the way, I hear what you're saying, but these are our boundaries, and you do still have to attend whatever it is, church or something like that, or I don't
Mhm,
know. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
Whatever that, yeah, whatever that is, yeah.
Right.
So we're going to get to questions soon, but I think this is another thing in your book, and I put the link everybody to her book in the chat. So definitely, I want you to check it out. And you talk about in the book the difference between vulnerability and emotional transparency. So what
Mhm.
is the difference between those two things, and what are they?
Yeah. So I think we hear that word vulnerability a lot, right? When we talk about how do we have meaningful, close relationships, we have to be vulnerable. And that's a yes and a no for me. Okay. So vulnerability implies emotional risk. That means I have to risk to share how I'm feeling. And so we don't want our kids to feel like it's risky at home to share. So we need to look at vulnerability more as a stepping stone to the goal, which is emotional transparency. That's the end goal. We want our kids to be able to simply come to us and tell us how they're feeling, what's really going on for them. So where vulnerability plays a part, I use an example in the book where my daughter comes to me and she says, Mom, I have something to tell you, but I'm just not quite sure. I'm a little worried. I'm nervous. I don't know. And I lean in and say, you can tell me anything. So right there was that place where she felt vulnerable. She was unsure. Is
Mm.
this something I can tell my parent? And so that's the moment where you go in and you create some safety. And so now she can be transparent with me about that subject.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's good she gave you that warning so you could buckle up.
Yeah, I know. It's like, God, what is it? And it was really about shaving her legs. I mean, it was like, okay. But the more that we talk about our feelings, how we're really doing as parents, not putting the onus on our kids to take care of us, but it's just, we're normalizing that conversation. The less it feels vulnerable, the less they have to risk to share how they're doing. So we as parents have to normalize talking about how we feel every day.
Yeah. And it brings to mind if we all think about somebody in our lives that we felt really safe with, that we could tell things to.
Yes.
And think about that person. And I guarantee you that person is somebody that we could say something to and they weren't going to judge us and they weren't going to criticize us or they weren't going to try to fix it.
Right.
And that's what you're talking about.
Right. And that go back to the volley right there, right there. That volley, I'm listening to understand, I'm validating, I'm empathizing with you. And we didn't get to it, but owning and repairing, which means if I hurt feelings or there was a misunderstanding or conflict, repairing all that, that builds safety. And that does impact kids being emotionally transparent with you too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also want to tell the moms, my daughter has, and if you want this, email me, but she wrote a blog post when she was in her 20s about some of the things that I did that were not helpful. And one of those things she said is if you freak out, it's kind of like a letter to all parents, but if you freak out, your kid won't tell you.
Exactly.
And so that's where it's so important for us to really manage our own emotions and reactions and remind ourselves that a lot of this is very normal, even though they might come to you with something that's hard to hear.
Right.
And it's never too late because even though when she was in middle school and early high school, and I started really working on these things in my own life, she says in the article, but my mom started working on herself and she started changing these things. So I felt safe enough to start really talking to her. So if you're here and you're like hearing this and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I've really messed up, it's never too late to
It's
start doing
never,
these things. Yeah.
never too late. I have, I fit, and I do write this in the book. When your kid sees that you're doing work to have better interactions with them, that means so much to them. They're like, wow. I've had parents say that they even bought the book and they started reading it and their kids saw that they were reading it and they were like, wow, okay, thanks. You
Mhm.
know, yeah.
Which brings me to our last question. Then we'll shift to your questions, moms. Um, the identified patient.
Mhm.
I think that's really important for us to talk about. Talk about the identified patient.
Okay. So what happens a lot in my practice is a parent will call and say, my teenager's, acting up, misbehaving, what have you, something's wrong. I do an intake with parents and then the kid comes in and oftentimes, I'm hearing what's going on and it's really about the family system. Okay. And the family system impacts how a teenager is doing. And oftentimes the teenager is the identified patient and they are expected to make changes. And really, it's the family that needs the work together. And so when we look at it as it's just my teenager that
Yeah.
has the issue, and then the family isn't willing to kind of, oh, how can I support? What can I do differently? That's where it's like maybe the progress can be stalled a little bit. I had one parent come in and they were fine during the intake, the mom and the dad during the intake. And then the kiddo came 4 times. And I'm like, it's actually family work that needs to be done. And so I'd like to see each of you individually, the mom and individually and the dad individually. And the mom came in like this and sat there.
Mm.
She was pissed.
Hmm.
And I had to earn her trust, which I did. I was like, you know what? This is a challenge and I'm up for it. And I did. I earned her trust. And, she's like, I don't know why I'm here. This has nothing to do with me. And I'm like, I promise if you can just be patient, I know we can get you guys all to a better place. And it did. But I think we have to really remember that it's not just the kid, that the kid is in a family system. And so everyone doing the work is really the best result.
Absolutely. Yeah, when I first took my daughter to therapy when she was in middle school, it was through that when I would get brought into the sessions that I was like, ooh, I need to do this work myself. Like this is more, this is about me too. And
Mhm.
our kids are our best teachers. And I'm so grateful for that. I am so grateful because it
Mm.
changed my life because I was willing to change myself. And that's when things really started turning around. So think about that because we can look at the one troublemaker kid and the family and think they're the problem. If they just change, everything will be
Right.
versus
You're
looking
right.
at your whole family, what might be going on that the kid
Hmm.
is acting out of that place. Maybe they're the one that's expressing it all and everybody else is shut down.
Oh, such a great point. It's very true. And a lot of it, like I said, could be complete misunderstandings, right? It could be, oh, my mom thinks this way about me or that, or she sighs, she does that. And do you know how easy those little things are to fix? I mean, you know what I mean? Or to change, not fix, but to change and to shift. And massive things can shift just from a couple of little tweaks of what's happening in that cycle.
Yep. Yes. So good. Well, I'm going to get over to questions now. We've got lots. Yeah, Liz says, thank you. I so needed that. The main patient is the family. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a family system. Um, you're welcome, Donna. So, okay. Who has a question? I'm going to go through. All right, my daughter's phone that is not, let's see. It's kind of my daughter's phone that is not something. The internet tracked her leaving the school and going to a house yesterday. OMG. I just found this out this morning. OMG, I'm so scared. She also cut off her beautiful long blonde hair in front on the sides a few days ago as well. This is Tara.
Okay.
So, what would you say to that?
Well, does she know that you're tracking her? I guess is my first question.
Hmm. Okay, so yeah, she tracked her leaving school. So let's say she does.
Okay. Okay.
Ariana. No,
So, I mean,
she doesn't.
okay,
It's not. It's on the internet.
on the
Okay.
end. Okay. Well, I think that obviously sitting down with her sooner than later and asking her what's going on. This
Hmm.
this feels a little out of character, it sounds like, and kind of go with that of, is there something that's changing? Is there something going on? And really just kind of, can you share with me how you're doing so I can really understand what's happening? And I would say the school shared with me that you left school the other day.
Mm.
And I'm just trying to figure out what's happening. So that's kind of two things that I'm noticing is you cut all your hair off, which was surprising to me. And then I hear that you left school. So can you tell me what's happening? What's going on? And
Mhm.
staying regulated and gaining that information, not saying they're not consequences for leaving school. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying let's listen and understand first what's happening. You're going to get more information out of her if you can stay regulated and be curious and gathering information mode versus yelling. I heard you left school, you're grounded. Do you know what I mean? Gather the information first. I think there's this piece of that we get off track. Hey, don't punish your kid, right? I agree. We're not going to punish, okay? But they are consequences to their behavior. If my daughter sneaks out at a friend's house at a sleepover, she's not going to, spend the night for a few weeks or something at someone's house. Like there is a consequence. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
But you would have a conversation first, is what I hear you
Conversation
saying.
first. Oh, yeah. And what you learn in that conversation is valuable. I was under so much pressure. I didn't know what to do. Everyone went. They were calling me names like I'm a loser if I don't go. What's your problem? So right there, I have to teach her how to resist peer pressure. I need you. This is what you can do in the next scenario. Let's figure out because this will happen again. What can we do to safeguard you in the next time you feel peer pressure? What can you say? We can role play. How can you use me? Blame it on me. Lots of things can come out of just sitting and having the conversation first.
So so staying calm,
Mm-hmm.
what I hear you saying, see, we're practicing what I hear you saying, getting curious about what went on
Yep.
and listening, and
Yeah.
then not like judging and criticizing what they're saying so that they feel you're safe, right?
Yep.
And then being able to say, okay, thinking about, is there a consequence to that? What can you do next time? Having that
Right.
conversation.
Right. And even asking the kid, do you think you should have a consequence for that?
Yeah,
What do you think it should be?
I like that.
Yeah.
It's amazing what they'll come up with. Sometimes
It
it's
is
like
amazing.
even hard, it's even stricter than maybe what your consequence would be.
Yes.
And then sometimes you can go, well, I don't know if it, needs to be, for 2 months, whatever they
Yeah.
say.
I know.
And you look like the good guy.
I know. I know. It's true.
Uh, yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Um, okay. I told my almost, this is a pretty big one. I told my almost 15-year-old neurodivergent son that he couldn't take his $1,000 gaming laptop to school and then was going to call the police on me. And he said, I am moving out with I am 18 and no wonder why my older brother doesn't speak to you. Ouch.
Oh, I'm so sorry for
Yeah.
whoever shared that. I'm so sorry. Um, that, I mean, just in that piece right there, if you simply said you can't take your gaming $1,000 computer to school and he reacted to you in that way, that tells me like you need some support.
Hmm.
Yeah, you need some support because that sounds really hard that
Hmm.
he would it sounds like he almost attacked you, but is that's what
Hmm.
it feels like when you read that. Like he kind of attacked you and then gave you an ultimatum, I'm not going to talk to you ever again. Maybe getting some therapy around, because that seems like a pretty simple interaction of you can't take $1,000 computer to school. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, like a simple request, and it makes
Right,
sense.
right.
And he
And
had that big
sure.
reaction.
Right. And so that's one thought. That was my initial thought is therapy. But the other thought is when he does calm down to have a conversation with him about why did you react that way? What was happening for you that you had such a big reaction? Now, neurodiverse, I don't specialize in that, but there is this piece that obviously I'm aware of is there's a little bit of rigidness. It's like I have to do what I want to do, or I can't change my schedule, or these kinds of things. Transitions are hard. So that also could be part of it, of like if this is something he had in his mind and he was becoming pretty rigid about it, that can actually be a difficult place internally for them, and seeking help around that as well.
Oh, that's very helpful. Thank you, Susan.
Mm.
Tara said she's the one, she came back, she asked another question. She's the one that was talking about her daughter leaving school.
Mhm.
What do you think would be a good consequence? She asked.
Well, I mean, I don't know your daughter, and really finding out about your daughter and usually is a factor in what the consequence would be. Um, you know, and maybe it's, socially, you skip school. And so, you can't go out on Friday and Saturday evening. If it's her first offense and she's remorseful and
Mm.
she shares with you the real reasons why she did that and she was struggling, maybe you say, okay, I'm not going to give you a consequence this time, but now this is not something that's acceptable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Um, I have found I have to stop and remind myself it's not about you, it's her. She's her own person. But I get the worry she's going through something and the why of it.
Mhm.
And she was talking to Tara about that. So, yeah.
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 Yeah. 15 is a really hard age. And again, navigating their social world is so complex. It it is a moment to moment indication of whether you belong or not in your friend group. The phone is so painful. The distress that it causes for teenagers, I see it every day. As simple, I sent a text, three little dots, they didn't respond, they didn't read it. All of that just like gets them registered. Oh, I'm out of my friend group. They don't like me. So and so's mad. And none of it may be true.
I think even as adults, it's sometimes easy to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so much more for them, you know.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I have a question that was submitted. My son struggles with anxiety before tryouts, first day of school, new skills sessions with unknown group of kids, especially older teens, big competitive games. I pretty much come to accept my tween can't handle too much talking to or activity beforehand. No talking in car, en route, as he has a routine with listening to music. And then she goes on. Susan's book confirms relating to their experience, listening, normalizing anxiety are good strategies, which I'm starting to use. Just curious if there are any more learning advice, if there's any more advice around these situations. I do feel very cut off and alone while watching him before these events, disconnected, I'd say, wanting to assist, but sitting back at his request.
Mhm. So what I'm hearing is like the music is something he uses to calm himself. Is that what? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, it's a very good tool to use to calm yourself, is music, movement. And then I work with teenagers about like where do you feel that anxiety in your body? And like, for example, mine would be in my chest. And what can I do to forget the why of why I'm anxious and just calm that place in my body with breathing, music, movement, that kind of thing. And so
Ooh.
that piece is good. What I'm hearing though is if he doesn't want to talk to you in the car ride before these games because he's trying to keep himself calm, are there other times that you can connect with him and, use that time to kind of cultivate the relationship? And so not taking it personally of like, okay, right now it's before a game. This is his process to keep himself calm, but he still will connect with me over dinner, over all these other times. And by the way, dinner is a must. I think that it should be a non-negotiable time. No eating in the room. I think we need to dinner. We're losing time at the dinner table, and the dinner table is a protective factor, having dinner with your family. And so that needs to be like one of those non-negotiables. We're eating dinner
And no phones
and
at the
no
table.
phones. Yep.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Yeah. I like that, realizing, okay, that might not be the time to talk,
Yeah.
which I think can be hard. We want to talk right then and there.
Yeah.
And I also know this mom well. And, growing up, her parents were checked out. So you talk a lot in the book about understanding our childhoods. And I think sometimes when we grow up in those families, we feel cut off. And then that can come up when our kids are cutting us off.
Right, right. Or that thought of I'm being not a good parent because I'm not having a conversation right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So put your questions, we'll be done in 10 minutes. So just so you know, so if anybody's putting, I'll look. Um, okay. How would you handle if you feel like your daughter is not choosing to be social enough, not wanting to show that reciprocity of friendships? That's
Mhm. Yeah. So Anna, I would be just curious with her about it. Like, what is behind that? What is the underlying reason that maybe she's not wanting to be social or, um, reaching back out if friends are reaching to her and she's not reaching back out? What are the underlying issues of why she's not doing that? It could be
Mm.
a number of different things. It could be that particular friend group. It could be something someone said. It could be insecurities. It could be what she's telling herself about herself, right? Like, how are people seeing me? It could be insecurities. I guess I just said that. Sorry. um, but could be lots of different things. And so really getting curious and not in a judgmental way, like, why aren't you doing this? Like, what you need to be more social. It's really like, is there something going on? You used to be social, you're not. So I'm just checking in to make sure that you're doing okay.
That would be a good way to broach the conversation. Because sometimes it's even hard to know, ooh, they're not being, social. How do I even start that conversation without like something's wrong with you?
Right. Right. We don't want to come from the angle of like something's wrong with you. It's just really about being curious. I've
Yeah.
noticed you're not as social. Is there anything going on? And not having judgment around that.
And sometimes what I see with moms is maybe they were really social,
Mm-hmm.
but their kids are more introverted. And
Right.
so we want them to go to prom and homecoming and all those things that meant so much to us, but to
Right.
them, it's not as big of a deal.
Right. And so we do have to remember our kids aren't extensions of us, they're their own individuals. And so that's why it's like no judgment. You're not doing what I did at that age, and that's okay. But it's just like, is there an underlying issue that, we need to talk about?
Yeah, I love that she's aware. She says, I feel like I'm in repair mode because when I ask, she takes it as me judging.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. But I love the word you just used in repair
Yeah.
mode. I mean, that's great.
Yeah. Yes. And reminding ourselves, yeah, all of our kids are different. But you also want to, you were checking it out just to make sure things are okay. And
Right.
that's that whole thing we're talking about how they perceive things. Oh, moms think something's,
Yeah.
she's teaching me. Yeah.
Yeah. I do have an agreement, like with I have, parents and teens do this in my office. I have couples do it. I do it in my own house. If, you know, if you think whatever I said is judgmental or critical, just tell me, because sometimes I don't hear it. I
Mhm.
didn't know. I didn't mean it. My intention is to never be critical or judgmental, right? And saying that with your kid, that's not my intention to be critical. But I might mess up.
Mhm.
I might say something that doesn't sound critical to me, but it does to you. It lands that way with you. Just tell me so I can repair it.
Mhm. Yep. I love that. Yep. Because they'll give you feedback. If you ask for it, they'll start letting you know, and that's creating that safety in your relationship.
Right.
Yep. The tricky part is not to get defensive when they
It
say,
is. Or to get in a power struggle or start to, yeah, the defending. I didn't do that.
yeah, yeah. So try to notice if you're tempted to do that. And it's a good thing if they're telling you, Mom, you keep nagging me, or Mom,
Right,
whatever it
right,
is,
right.
that
Yeah, we do have to own our own stuff, right? And, sometimes there's a little humor in that. Like, yep, I do that. I do repeat myself. I'm sorry. Yeah.
yeah. Um, this is, unless somebody puts something in the chat, here's one of our last questions. Do you have any recommendations as how to help them? Because she's saying her kids get anxious about taking action on things that will help them. And she says, do you have any recommendations as how to help them when they are anxious to push through the anxiety?
Yeah. Okay. A great question. And lots of kids, have anxiety right now. And it's researched. The best way to deal with anxiety is exposure therapy. So not to avoid it, right? And so we do need to get our kids to try things, to do things, to achieve. And so it's really about small bites of doing that so they can start building the confidence and training them to understand that your body is going into fight or flight or freeze and telling you that there's danger. And so there may not be danger. And so let's regulate our bodies and figuring out what works for your kids and how they can regulate themselves. And again, starting with the body, finding out where some kids it's in their throat, some it's in their chest, their stomach, their hands. That is that signal to say, not why am I doing this? Just that, oh, okay, I'm having some anxiety right now. My body's reacting. And now it's time for me to calm it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there is a link. I'm going to pull it up right now. And I give this to teenagers. I'm also the mental health director of the Live Project. And I wrote some articles and I'll
Okay,
put the
good.
link
I'll
and
out in the replay too.
okay. Here we go. I'm putting it in the chat. And you can even have your kids read this. It talks about, oh, it did work. Okay, great. In these articles, it talks about your body and how to regulate your body. It talks about your thoughts and how to deal with that inner critic. It talks about your feelings, talks about social media. And so they're like short little articles that are really good and effective for younger people.
Oh, good. Thank you. That's a great resource. Really
Mhm.
wonderful resource. I noticed that when you were talking about anxiety, you said not to ask, you didn't say it exactly like this, but that it's the why is not really that important.
Yeah, because uh, sometimes, I mean, it's good to know like, oh, I get triggered or this or that, but sometimes it's not, because what that can do is actually cause you to spiral more. Because if you don't know what, like if somebody has panic disorder, if you don't know why the anxiety is happening and you're stuck in asking yourself, why? Well, I don't know what it is. And you're on the hunt, it actually just increases your anxiety. So I teach, and when you have anxiety, you're not using your frontal lobe is offline. So forget it. Just regulate your body and you can come back later and maybe look for the why, but regulate your body.
Mm, really good.
Yeah.
Last question. What is a great way to greet your middle schooler after school besides how was your day?
Yeah. I think it's so nice to see you. I thought about you today. I missed you. I'm so excited to see you. And forget, how was your day? Do you have homework? You need to clean your room. It's just a greeting, like we would greet other people, right? Like, oh, I'm so glad you're here. That kind of thing.
Yeah, and resist all the, yeah, what do you have to do? Yeah. Oh, so good. Yeah, I mean, think how good that feels if somebody's face lights up when they see us.
I know, it's true, right? We all want that feeling. And to get that when you're coming in the house, right?
Yep.
Oh, I'm they're happy I'm here, right?
Mhm. They're
Yeah.
happy to see me.
Yeah, yeah. And that piece I just saw in the chat, it says, and let me be for a bit. Oh my gosh, to think about what they went through the whole day and to have a little downtime, 100%. Like, don't take it personally that they say hi and then they go into their room for a little bit to just chill out.
Yeah,
But
no, yes, they do need to chill out. Yep.
they've got to chill out. But the more it's relaxed and they know that you're not going to be in the parent role, I promise you, the less time they're going to be in their room. I promise.
Yeah, I
The
always
more
say
that
like they're
you're
like, yeah,
the more that you're in the mom dad role, the less time you have to be in the parent role.
yeah. I always say they're like turtles. Like they're gonna go in their shell and they're not gonna want to come out if they just know they're gonna get badgered with all those questions.
I
Yeah.
know.
We turtles have to peek a, look out and say, is it safe out here?
I know it.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, well, this was so good, Susan. And I will put the book, here's Susan's book, The Parenting Connection. You can get it on Amazon, where all books are sold. Tell them where to find you. And you also were going to give away
Oh,
a
how are you
book.
going to do that? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Why?
How are
Exactly.
you doing that? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Person to email me at Cheryl@momsoftweensandteens.com. You will get, you'll get the first book. How about that?
Okay. And then they will have to send their full name and address so I can mail it to them, of course.
Okay. Yeah. Cheryl with an S. Yeah.
All right.
Cheryl, Moms of Tweens and Teens, and I'll make sure you get that book. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me
So,
the other
yeah.
because
I am at susan.caso on Instagram, and I'm new to Instagram just in October. I'm not saying I enjoy it, but I have to do it for the book. But and then counseling at susancaso.com is my email. Susancaso.com is my website. So yeah.
and you're speaking at different places, at schools, so that they can know that if their school needs somebody to share these rich uh,
Yes.
your
Yeah.
rich nuggets and wisdom that you have. You're doing that. You're leading other book groups.
That's right. Yeah. Anybody that wants to organize a book group and ask me to pop in on one of the meetings, I'm happy to do that, or come talk at a school or a community organization. Just reach out to me. I would be happy to do that.
Yep. Good. And anybody that wants to reach out to me, email me at CherylMomsOfTweensandTeens.com also, because we have 3 tiers of membership. So if you're feeling like you need more support right now, I would love to hear from you. I can just support you in what that might look like. And we also have a book club. This month we're reading Boundary Boss by Terry Cole. So so every month we read a book too. So all the different ways that we can get support, it's very important. We all need each other. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, yes. Thank
So,
you all for coming. Thank you so much.
yeah, this was so great. And I love like all the different people that showed up and were engaging in the chat. It's just amazing. So, Thank you. And you're so welcome. And just have a beautiful day.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Susan. It was
Hey.
good.
All right, thanks.
All
Bye.
right. Bye. You're welcome.